My name is Terry Mellish, and I'm delighted to participate in the Fish Out of Water initiative for the Diversity Project. I retired at the end of last year after 50 years in the City of London, with a number of roles both in the UK and internationally. I ran teams in the Middle East, in Europe, and in the US, as well as in the UK. But how did I get to that level and that experience and that status after that long journey? I started work in the city at the age of 18, left school after A-levels, didn't go to university, came from a very humble background, single parent family. We lived in what we call a council house, today would be social housing. And it would be fair to say we lived in some poverty. We never had any money. I managed to pass my 11 plus, go to a grammar school, and was the only child on free school meals and had a free school uniform. And that was the start of a difficult journey for me in some ways. I had no idea what I wanted to do as a job, if you like, a career. We had no schools office in those days, a long time ago. So I decided to seek some help from an uncle who worked in the city, and he put me in touch with a few companies that I should consider, and they were all what used to be called merchant banks. I got 2 interviews and I accepted one role at the age of 18, but the company that I chose was incredibly blue chip, conservative, full of titled people, privileged people. And that was my first experience of being a fish out of water. It was incredibly daunting. And I decided after a couple of years, having already thought that I was, as a fish out of water, I was in the wrong career. I decided that the only way to overcome that would be to work hard, to knuckle down, be supportive, learn everything I could about my role and other people's roles. And eventually I started to make inroads in the business and took on more responsibility. But there was always an element of imposter syndrome about that company. I actually spent 33 years there in the end, but there was always an element of imposter syndrome. And at some stage, somebody's going to find me out because I didn't go to university, didn't have any professional qualifications, but I worked really hard and eventually that paid off. I left that firm to join a little startup which collapsed, so it never came about. And one of my later roles was with a fund of hedge fund group, which was the biggest in the world at the time, but got heavily involved in Madoff and had done for a number of years. But again, there was a big element of being a fish out of water there, because it was an incredibly professional, astute firm who knew everybody in the hedge fund world. The head of the London business knew everybody in the hedge fund world. Really clever person, deep intellect, knew everything there was to know about hedge funds and how they operated, and I didn't. So again, there was an element of being a fish out of water. So again, I decided, go back to basics, learn all you can and prove yourself. And Madoff came along, disrupted all that, and I eventually ended up in the firm that I finished my career at and spent 11 years there. And that was the best time of my life. I felt totally refreshed, totally energized about starting at that firm. And my last 3 or 4 years were doing a diversity role and a government relations role, a public policy role as well. And again, those 2 things massively re-energized me. So my message to everyone is, you can be a fish out of water. Often people are. There can be an element of imposter syndrome, but you can overcome those difficulties. You just need to find people who can support you, possibly to be mentors for you or supporters in some way, and you can do it. If I can do it from my humble background, then anybody can do it. So that's my life. Hope you enjoyed that. Thank you.